My name is Priyanka Bhide. I'm the co-founder of Kuber9 Initiative. And on behalf of Revolve and Kuber9 Initiative, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all those that have taken the time to tune in today for the first of a series of webinars that we will be hosting under the Sustainable India 2024 banner. A very warm welcome to all of our expert panelists as well, who I will introduce in more detail very shortly. But to give you a brief overview, the Sustainable India 2024 initiative is a continuation of the Sustainable India 2023 report that Revolve had done in cooperation with Kuber9 Initiative last year. And it was a series of articles and interviews and views, which are Revolve's photo essays that were put together on tracking the sustainability landscape of India. And this report is still available online through the Revolve website, and it's also available in a downloadable format. So picking up from there in 2024, we will continue this series of conversations both through the web platform, but also through these webinars that we will hold at the minimum of once every quarter and sometimes more often. And they will be around Revolve's core themes of water, energy, circularity, ecosystems, and mobility. And the idea of these webinars is to both create more awareness on these topical issues, and also then to start a dialogue on opportunities that may exist around the way forward. Today's topic, of course, is the interlinkages of soil and water in India and how these linkages impact other aspects of agriculture and health and sustainability, etc. I, of course, am no expert on this issue, so I'm very happy to have a panel of experts who will give us more information, and through some questions, I'll try to make it interesting. But incidentally, Revolve's spring issue is also around soil health, and I would invite everybody to have a look at that issue as well. Very basically, we of course know that soil and water is interconnected. Intuitively, you know that soil contains the capacity to hold water, which can then support vegetation and all sorts of activities that are critical to life, and the other way around as well. Soil also filters water, but water then also keeps soil healthy and vice versa. But I would like to turn first to Dr. Ghosh to give us a little bit of a more in-depth overview as to these linkages and how they impact the Indian landscape. But just to briefly introduce Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Subimal Ghosh, he is the convener of the Interdisciplinary Program in Climate Studies and a professor at the Department of Civil Engineering at IIT Bombay. Amongst his several accolades and awards, he has also been the lead author of the IPCC Assessment Report 6. So, Dr. Ghosh, of course, we just for our audience, that is a mix of both experts as well as people that may have an interest in the subject, and also people that might not know the Indian landscape so well. Could you give us a brief overview as to these interlinkages and how they impact India, and then bringing in your climate lens as well?
Yeah, India has a very, heterogeneous soil and water system, I would say, in a very simple language. So heterogeneous in the sense, like, if you're talking about water, there's a huge spatial variations of rainfall. There are certain regions. We have the western region, which are mostly arid regions, whereas we have northeast, which receive a lot of rain. If you consider the western Ghats, which receives a lot of rain, even, I'll just tell you, even within a district, there is a huge variability. For example, if you pick up a district in the Western Ghat region, which has both windward and leeward side, if you just go by 60 kilometer or 70 kilometer, when it is in windward side of Western Ghats, you'll get 6,000 mm rain. If you go to the leeward side, it's only 500 millimeter. So there is a huge variation of rainfall. But what has happened over, and one of the most important part is that monsoon rainfall is the most important thing, because our country is dependent on agriculture. So if there is a failure of monsoon rainfall, that affects the agricultural activities and also the economy of this country. So monsoon rainfall and agriculture, these two are very important, and the thing that connects both of them is essentially soil and water. Now let us try to understand what has happened over the years. Over the years, what has happened, extremes have increased, which may not add value to the soil moisture. But moderate rainfall trends have slightly reduced, but there is a periodicity and so on. We are not sure what will happen in the future. But what we are sure about the future and what has happened over the past is that there has been a huge population growth. And when there is a huge population growth, we need more food. We need more water. And when we need more food and more water, your agricultural productivity has to increase. And if you have to increase your agricultural productivity, you need more water. And if it is warming, then you need further more water. So your water need is increasing, water availability is reduced. So what farmers are doing? Farmers are dependent on irrigation nowadays. There is a huge number of increase in irrigation. Initially, the government started giving subsidies in terms of electricity. So farmers do not really take any initiative to measure the soil moisture, which is even costly affair, which is not possible for most of the farmers. So what they do is that whenever they get a chance, they just some money for go buy diesel or something. They just pump groundwater, and when there is a free electricity available, they just pump groundwater and apply. So essentially, your groundwater is depleting, and the other problem what is happening is that so every year when you are depleting your groundwater, every year your energy requirement is increasing, and when energy requirement is increasing, the cost is increasing. When irrigation cost is increasing, finally it is affecting food price, and again the food problem, the problem with the people who are below poverty line or whose economic condition is not very good. Again, we are going into the food security. So we are now in a trap, which is associated with water cycle, which is associated with food and water nexus, as well as the human intervention. And we need to find a way out in what way we can get rid of or we can come out of this trap. Because we have seen that none of the policies which have still developed is not really sustainable. This is the IPCC has said. So even all over the world, we are not really come up with a proper sustainable food and water practices. So this is a major challenge, and the challenge is more in India because we need more water, we need more food because our population is increasing, but climate is not really supporting us. We are seeing more and more extremes. So maybe this is something what I feel is one of the grand challenge, and maybe through this webinar we'll try to find out that if we can have a good discussion and find out some way. So yeah, maybe more I'll tell when some specific questions will come.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for this very excellent overview and to explain how there's this circular, almost catch 2020, right? We're stuck in this circle of which is not very helpful. And how do we use and policy to break these circles? To explain the format, what I will do is with each introduction, I will have a question and then we'll make it a little bit more free-flowing discussion. So once we've heard all the speakers, we can also start taking in some questions. So for those tuning in, if you have any questions, please do post them in the Q&A box as we go ahead. So I'm going to pick up on the very critical aspect that you spoke about, Dr. Ghosh, which was the impact on agriculture, which then also affects our food security and such. And bring this question to my next expert, Ms. Vidya Mandave. Ms. Vidya Mandave is a researcher with the International Water Management Institute, and her expertise is on agricultural water management. She's an agricultural engineer and also has a PhD in irrigation and drainage engineering. So Vidya, my question to you is, of course, focused on agriculture, which takes up the lion's share of water, the world over, but more so in India. And if you could speak a little bit about the linkages between water and soil and its impacts on agriculture, and then cascading forward.
Yeah, I'll start with some basics of the soil. So basically, soil acts as a natural sponge to store the water. It's a natural reservoir, so which in turn supports plant growth and sustain the ecosystems. So if soil health is deteriorated, that reduces the organic matters in the soil. So that in turn, that is actually the impact of this climate change, increased temperature that increases soil temperature, that reduces soil organic matter, organic carbon, and that reduces the soil quality, and that again impacts on the agriculture productions. When soil quality deteriorate, farmer opts for the more fertilizer use. So as per my experience since last 20 years, in 2 decades, fertilizer consumption has been increased by, I think, 85% in India, chemical fertilizer. And that again reduces, at some extent, it helps to grow the plants better way, but after some extent, it reduces the soil quality again. And that again in turn increases salts in the soil, that leads to the waterlogging problem, and it all in turn impact on the agricultural production system. And as Subimal sir said, that population is going increasing, and if production is going decreasing, that will create abundant pressure on this whole ecosystem.
Thank you, Vidya. We will, of course, come to you with many more questions. But now I will next turn to Mr. Manas Satpathy, who's the Executive Director of Pradhan. Manas has led development initiatives on irrigation and natural resource management to improve the quality of life for rural communities in impoverished regions across India. And Manas, I bring the same question to you, essentially. To talk about some of the challenges that you have witnessed, but also then to veer us towards some of the opportunities and solutions that may lie in this space as well.
Okay, thanks. Let me make an attempt. So as already said, so I would like to say something more about the changing pattern of rainfall and how is it affecting water conservation. So because of climate change, we all know that even in places where annual rainfall has remained almost same, still number of days of rainfall has reduced and rainfall has become highly erratic. And at the same time, as Vidya said, because of increasing dependence on chemical fertilizers, the soil is no more that spongy. Organic content has reduced. So when rainfall is occurring for less number of days, we need to harvest more rainfall. But what is happening? Percolation has reduced. So we are getting more and more runoff. So it is further eroding the soil. One thing is that number of rainfall days has reduced and intensity of rainfall has increased. Means whenever it is occurring, it is very high intensity rain. And when the soil is not spongy, in addition to that, so very less rainfall is getting percolated. So our green water is reducing, which is a major source for vegetation, and more water is running off, eroding the soil again. So we are losing everything. The water amount in the soil is reducing, soil is getting eroded. So the way forward is to have an integrated management of both soil and water, because they exist together, they don't exist in isolation. And when the rainfall pattern has changed, and which is going to stay, this change, now it is the reality, the change pattern. So we have to adjust our practices to the new reality. Even though we reduce the emissions, the climate is not going to change and be what it was earlier. So we have to now, adaptation should be the priority. Actually, there is a preoccupation in mitigation, whereas adaptation has to be the priority, because the people at the bottom of the pyramid who have contributed the least to this climate change crisis, they are suffering the most because of it. So adaptation will help them continue with their vocation, that is agriculture, and diversify, so that they also lead a life with dignity. That should be the priority. So present context, the challenges are how we can harvest more and more water that is running off, so that it doesn't erode the soil. At the same time, we need to shift towards natural farming. We need to reduce dependence on this external inputs and rejuvenate the natural processes of providing nutrients to the plants, vegetation. And the way forest lands and grasslands have been converted to cropland, that is not in the interest of natural resources. So how we can go for agroforestry, silvipasture, so that tree becomes an integral part of anything that we do in the agricultural lands. I think these are the way forward to deal with the situation. Yeah. Thank you. Did you want something more now?
I do, but I will have Tania give a few introductory remarks and then come to you with more specific questions.
Okay.
I do definitely want a lot more information, but we'll have Tania give a few opening remarks as well. Tania Friedrichs has worked for many years with the European Commission in Brussels, and during that period also served in a delegation to New Delhi. So I want to turn to Tania to bring in the EU perspective to do a comparison of similar challenges that you have seen both in the EU and in India, and if you see any opportunities either together or to learn from each other.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Priyanka, for this introduction and for the fact that I could participate to the discussion. All what I have heard is really music to our ears. There was the question of the linkage of soil and water, and climate change resilience. Definitely the linkage is there. And I think we have right away, with no further ado, go to the solution, or what is the answer, because I already heard a lot of problems, a lot of reasons for the problems. And I would say that definitely I want to say that the challenge that India is facing is equally the case in Europe. That was also what I saw while I was 5 years a science counselor at the delegation of the European Union in New Delhi, where we contacted. I mean, India was always saying, "Oh, we're very special, and we're big, and we're heterogeneous, and all that." Sure, but we do have the same problems, the challenges, they are global. I would, of course, say that what India is facing is 10 times more, 100 times more. You're a big country, a continent, and indeed this heterogeneous character. We have that a bit in the EU as well. We had, as an answer to this interlinkage of policies and issues, we launched in 2021, I don't know if you are aware of that, what we call the Mission on a Soil Deal. And that was precisely to have all the policies that are interlinking, and there are a lot, to bring them together and make sure that we take actions in the one that is not undermining actions in another area, and that we all work towards not only the zero net emission targets, but more importantly, so it does go together to a healthy planet. And with the way the soil is today, I did a little bit of research, incidentally, for the preparation of today. Globally, 33% of the land cannot be used for food because of soil erosion, and that means 1/3 of the. Then that means indeed less possibility for food production, because another important factor, 95% of our food comes from the soil, or is directly or indirectly linked to the soil. I did hear in the beginning just a little question mark, very relevant, I think, to the debate we're having, is, and also to the fact that if we have more land, we can produce more food, because our planet is also expanding, more people. But sometimes, and forgive me, when I was in India, I saw that, is it really a question of more food? I think it is a question of more healthy food, quality food, and get the food where sometimes the people in the poor areas don't get it. Another aspect of our mission soil deal is the multi-actor approach, meaning that not only policymakers, local people, research institute, industry can address it, but, and very relevant for the discussion here, we can come to that later, is we have given a big role in our objective to have clean soil, because we need to do it. A very big part of it goes to communication and awareness. There is really what we call a soil illiteracy. And the people, the farmers, sometimes they don't know the impact of or how to do, or they are afraid or see diversion of income if they go for sustainable farming, and they need to know how to do that and what it can bring to them. In answer to your question, therefore, yes, we have the same problems, everything in proportion to the size. We took a policy initiative called EU Mission Deal, which, and that is my message here in terms of opportunities, underpinned by increased research and innovation. We will not achieve any of the targets of these interlinked policies, whether it is cleaner water, whether it is groundwater, whether it is sustainable agriculture, whether it is also how to of course we need to mitigate, but we need to restore for the biodiversity, but we also need certain soils that really have to be clean somehow, and all that technology therefore is necessary. And I can come to that later. The research is organized in the EU under our framework program Horizon Europe. So happy to elaborate a bit later in terms of opportunities of the role of research and innovation to address this challenge. Also within that whole policy objective, very similar, I believe, to also this 5-prong approach that India has taken to address the soil, a cleaner soil. But we all work too much in silos, and that is something that we may have to think of how to not to do that. And then the additional point in India compared to the EU is, of course, that soil is inevitably very territorial, and therefore it's the local community plays an important role and the state level, and water finds its way everywhere, so there are no borders for water. At least in the European Union, we also had to legislate, by the way. That is something also very important as a recommendation for the policymakers, that eventually you need legislation and incentives. And we do that at EU level. I believe that all this is done in India more at state level. So it is again creating a discrepancy and an issue of, given that the water finds its way everywhere, you may have a clean plot of land, and with the border with another state, this may not be the case. So definitely scope for working and learning from each other, best practices, and later on we can see on the opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tania. And picking up on some of the comparisons that you brought up, and going back to something that Manas, you said about integrated management, right, which is something that even Tania has stressed upon. So I would love to hear maybe first from you, Manas, but then if Dr. Ghosh and Vidya, you could also then add in as to at the policy level. I know there's already there exists some initiative from India, but if you could speak to that a little bit. And I will also include the question that has come in through the Q&A, which is related. I'll read it out. At the policy making level, perspectives on soil, water, climate, and agriculture tend to operate in isolated silos. How can we transition towards a more integrated approach that creates more coherence amongst these domains? So if I could take either Manas or Dr. Ghosh, whoever is ready to go first, but.
So I can go first. So the watershed program that was started in 94, it continued for some years, but it is not in a good shape now. So the major program that we have today to take care of our land and water resources, I think, is MGNREG. Of course, the purpose is not to do that. It is to provide employment to the who want on-skill employment. That is how it is articulated. 100 days of employment it is provides. But we have leveraged this MGNREG to promote integrated natural resource management, because that is the urgent need of rural population today. Because of climate change, it has actually, agriculture is no more viable without having control and access over water. The rainfall has become so erratic, one can't do farming without having control and access over water. So it is, otherwise people are migrating. Actually, landowners are becoming wage laborers. They are migrating to nearby towns as agricultural laborers, or to distant towns as construction workers. So that is the situation. So if you have to reverse it, and we have already done it in a large number of villages by leveraging MGNREG, and the models we have developed by working with the people in the locality, because they know better how their soil and water can be managed, because they have, but they don't have the resources and they don't have the access to right information and all that. But otherwise, broadly they know. So whatever we have developed it in partnership with the community there, that how their land and water resources can be managed better, so that more and more rainfall they can capture. They don't have to spend more energy in lifting it from the distant rivers or distant sources. And at the same time, how they can conserve the soil and improve the quality of soil, so that the soil can also hold a lot of water and it will not be eroded. Because when the soil organic carbon content increases, it doesn't allow the soil to be eroded also. It not only captures more moisture, it also reduces the erodibility. So that is how. So we have developed the models. We have leveraged MGNREG to do it. And now we have partnerships in 3 states at least. The state government has recognized our effort. And in partnership, like the partnership with NGOs as well as donors and also government, because government is not able to and cannot provide the costs of NGOs. So we have involved donors to provide the cost of NGOs at capacity building costs. NGOs are demonstrating it in certain blocks and building the capacity of government personnel in other blocks to do the similar things, so that participatory planning is made and all these people's plans are executed. Of course, the single year's resources are not enough to execute people's plan of a village. So it takes around 4 or 5 years to execute all their plans. But we follow the poor first principle, so that the weakest or most vulnerable persons' interests are met first, so that they don't migrate, they stay in the village. And once they stay in a village, there is a spiral growth in their livelihoods. So this is what our experience. Yeah.
Just to illustrate for an audience that might not have the context of India as well, if you could give more specifics on a specific example, where you have achieved this and how it has impacted a village.
Yeah, like I am talking about, we work mostly in the tribal areas of Central India. Central India means starting from South Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, to Western West Bengal. This whole belt has 70% of tribal population of India. And that is where the impact of economic growth that India has seen in the, say, after 1990s is minimum. The impact of this unprecedented economic growth is minimum in these pockets. And also many research says that chronically poor, the number of chronically poor is highest in this belt. So that means whatever is getting done has not helped them. So if something has, so if we want to improve their situation, something new has to be done. Business as usual has not helped them. So that is the region where we work. And when we went to these areas, we found that increasingly, because of lack of access to water and because of increasing erosion of the lands, they are gradually becoming laborers in spite of having lands. So we then tried to reverse that, to that we wanted that vicious cycle to be reversed, and we focused on their land and water resources. And by working with them, we developed different models. And these are undulating terrain. Their land types are very different than what it is in Bihar. So in a single village, you will have 6-7 types of lands, depending upon the slope and depth of soil. So for different reaches, you need different measures to increase increase moisture conservation and to reduce soil erosion. So we have developed all those models by working with the farmers, and we have mainstreamed those also. All of them are included in MGNREJ, and now people make the village development plan, and those plans are getting implemented under MGNREJ. This was there in the act when the act was made, but generally it is believed that people cannot plan. So mostly plans are decided at the district level or state level that this is what has to be done under MGNREJ, and they implement it. But we have done it in Odisha, Chhattisgarh and West Bengal, where we have a tripartite agreement between government, NGOs and donors to promote integrated natural resource management in the interest of the communities. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful. Dr. Ghosh, would you like to add some further information at the efforts at the policy level?
Well, because we started with discussing with integrated water management, and this integrated water management, this term has been around from 1990s or maybe 2000. But if you really look at the at a policy level, of course, policy level, if you go to any water resource policy meeting, people keep on talking about integrated water management. But if you go at a site or if you look at any of the policy, it doesn't include integrated water management. I mean, we have to be, very honest about that. And, we keep on talking about that. And most of the time, we, many times, we sort of design a policy which is not grounded on science. And hence it results into maladaptation. And, most of the cases we have been seeing this is happening. So for example, one simple example, suddenly people think that, irrigation is using a lot of, power. So let us make it solar power. So we start solar irrigation. What has happened? Because solar irrigation, once you give the solar pump to the farmers, it's a free electricity. So farmers started pumping a lot of groundwater, and groundwater started depleting. And we have seen a very, bad impact of, solar pump for irrigation approaches. So and so the one of the things what was needed probably is that you need to integrate with soil moisture sensor, and also integrate with water, weather forecast, so that we know that if you're irrigating tomorrow, maybe for next 3-4 days there is no rain that is happening, so the plants will sustain with this irrigated water and a certain amount of water that is really needed. So, and in that way you can save a lot of water and also save electricity. So things have not been done in such a way. So essentially we do not know what are the definition of integrated water resources management, and also what exactly is boundary. Its boundary keep on increasing. And for that, one of the thing, of course, we also failed. I mean, not only India, but overall at a global level also, we have also failed to develop team and solve a problem to a team approach where we have a lot of people from different background that they are really solving a problem. Theoretically, these problems are being solved in papers, but on reality, there is really a lack of things, and and this has been actually happening. And hence, IPCC report very clearly says that, there has been a lot of effort on sustainable food, water, etc., but none of them is really sustainable. There is a very, high confidence statement which IPCC Year 6, assessment report 6, working group 2 has mentioned, which is very important. So we have to understand that we have been failing, but just failing and then keep on talking about problems may not help. Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee, of course, in a different context, in his Poor Economics book, he has said that, if you keep on talking about problems without providing solution, that means you're making your system paralyzed rather than really progressing. So we have to solve the problem, but we do not know how to really develop teams. I think to me, that's the first problem. We have to first develop team. We have to work together. Then we'll try to get the problem from the stakeholders. What the stakeholders are facing, because scientifically we know what is the problem, but we have to understand the stakeholders' problem. The second thing also what I feel is that even there are small projects which has been happening. Even I know that there has been nowadays a lot of effort which has been taken by the scientists to talk to the stakeholders, develop proposals, etc. Of course, there is a need because the funding agencies are very keen on that. They say that, okay, you have to show a connection with the stakeholders and so on. So the scientists who wanted to work in silos, so they realized that they have to talk to a stakeholder and then really develop something. So we are also being forced to do that, which was much needed. But what is happening, you start developing something, and what is happening? Okay, you keep on developing first, and in the third year you talk to the stakeholder and say, look, we have developed this, use it. Nobody will use. Why suddenly a person who is working in a farm will believe someone who is talking from IIT Bombay? Nobody will do that. But what is important is that first try to understand their problem, first try to understand their solution, and slowly bring, in a small step, in a baby step, you just bring science into it and show and ask them, okay, if you want, you can use it. If you don't want, you don't have to use it. But look at it. This is our guidance. This is what we feel that this may help. And they can tell, okay, no, this will not work because of this. Then this will be a good learning from the scientists. And if it works, then that's a good learning for them also. In that way, a participative framework should develop. But, literally it doesn't happen. And then, it just goes in a completely wrong direction most of the time. So I would say it's a failure from the academic side also, as well as from the practicing people as well. So essentially, practicing people, of course, they focus more on the local side, and they forget that some good input they may get from the scientists, or collaborating with scientists and so on and so forth. And and scientists also forget, oh, I'm doing something, I'm getting paper, so my job is done, my promotion is confirmed, so why should I really bother to really work with NGO or someone at a local level? This is the real fact which we have to accept. But this may not work. And we have to do something as I said, that first thing is team development. Team development is very much needed at this moment. And then getting the problem from them and thinking the solutions are not available. It's very clear. We have been writing a lot of papers, there are a lot of patents, etc., but solutions, none of the solution cannot be really applied on the ground. And this is what Mr. Manas was also trying to say, is that if you're working at field, that's a completely different kind of challenge, and that may not be readily available. So we have to really think out of the box and generate something. A solution from the Western country may not be applicable for India, or maybe what is applicable for Indo-Gangetic Basin may not be applicable for somewhere in Marathwada, right? So it's entirely different. So it has to be very much region specific, very much local specific. It should have a very good early warning system. It should have some understanding of the stakeholders, and finally develop techniques in a small step, so that will give confidence to both the sides. So that's sort of the things which I feel is very, very much essential.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. I really appreciate you being so candid, and I think two important things to take away. In a way, you've steered us towards some sort of solution, at least, to say that we need teams that have diverse expertise, and also methods that can actually be stakeholder led right from the beginning, right? Coming back again to some of the struggles that that Manas also spoke about earlier. I also saw Vidya nodding a lot through the entire through when both of you all were speaking. So Vidya, I'd love to get you in here and if you would like to add and also provide any solutions that you see in the path forward.
Yeah, I could relate these things with my some past work with IMI. So yes, there are so many policies and schemes at a national level regarding this soil and water conservation. So I would like to enlist here some soil health card system is there that started in 2015. Then PMKSY, they have some components related to prevent soil erosion and some regenerative agriculture, and then NMSA is there. And also our state level programs are also ambitious programs, but politically driven programs. So just like in Maharashtra, GDGS, Gay Mukta Dharan and Gay Yukta Shivar, where they are desilting the tanks, reservoirs, and then putting that accumulated silt to the farmers' land. So that are some ambitious programs are there. Even in Telangana, they are doing the same through Mission Kakatiya. In Gujarat, they are doing Sujlan Suklam Yojana that was in past, and also in Andhra Pradesh, they are also working on the same. So yes, our government is supporting, but it's not in well planned manner, and it's sometimes it's a political agenda. So to continue these things in a well-planned manner, there should be some proper plans for the climate resilient agriculture. So in IMI, we prepared some plans for prioritization of technologies, and then mobilizing into these funding structures, connecting convergence plans. We included all these things by identifying some location-specific technologies and talking with the stakeholders and taking their decisions. That was a long training kind of session things. And then when the prioritized technologies came out, then converging it with the government linking programs, and then identifying how much funds are required to implement it into the ground. So it's basically district level kind of proper plans. So such kind of initiatives should be there to find out how much funds are actually required to promote and to implement these kind of technologies on the ground. So it includes climate risk pattern also. So what kind of climate risks how occurring in that particular place, and how that are affecting, and how to mitigate the impact. So that should also included in this kind of plans. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Yes, excellent example, I think, of looking at it as Dr. Ghosh was also suggesting in a more in a smaller level, right, in a context specific level, and you looked at it at the district level. And I mean, building on that, I would love to hear more examples, perhaps from Manas on how this stakeholder-led bottom-up approach is actually feasible. What are the challenges there, and how do you how have you all tried to kind of get around them? And then is there a way to scale these, or should we just be looking at small pockets of development and go that way, rather than try to connect it all at a level where it doesn't connect? And then similarly, I will bring this question to Tania, because although Dr. Ghosh, you've said that, yeah, Europe is very different, but from my experience, I feel that there are a lot of challenges there as well that we just never hear about. So within your space as well, Tania, I would love to hear if you think anything compares with what Manas shares, and if anything strikes, and any ideas may strike you.
So should I go first then?
Yes.
Okay. let me first talk about the challenges that we had to deal with before even getting to where we are today. We have got to go much far, but at least we have done something so far. The challenges are, one is that even though I will say that awareness is there, that situation is changing. We will not get rainfall the way we were getting it earlier. So we have to change our practices. However, access to the right information, right technologies, right practices, and also the capacity to implement it is largely absent. And as Subimal mentioned, we are trying to copy things which have worked somewhere to other places without understanding the context there, without understanding the culture there, without understanding the people's priorities there. So that doesn't work. So that is why a lot of, like you must have heard in hilly areas, once upon a time, they identified that lift irrigation is the solution. They went for high capacity lift irrigation schemes, electrical, and electricity supply itself was not adequate. So all of them got defunct. I think 90% or more than 90% of them. So that has happened a number of times in the past. So even now, the right technologies are not there. Nobody is there to work with the people and understand the prospects and constraints their resources have, and to come up with solutions for that context. Like, for example, under MGNREG also, before we worked with the system, they had come up with a guideline that large ponds have to be constructed under MGNREG. When 90% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers, how can they give large chunk of land for construction of water bodies? So we came up with decentralized large number of small ponds. We call it 5%. So if 5% of the area, even if farmers can give for water bodies, then 95% of the land, crops in 95% of their land can be protected. So that is what we demonstrated. So that is another constraint. Then second, next constraint is, of course, I talked about the policy constraint. Even though first is absence of policies, like Vidya talked about PMKSY. When it was launched, actually their Tushar Shah, a very senior colleague, Dr. Tushar Shah, had come up with a very detailed note, policy brief, how PMKSY should be looked at. He also had suggested different things to be done in different geographical regions in India. Whereas the way resources were allocated under PMKSY, I think 2/3 went to the areas where already irrigation is available, because promotion of micro irrigation was one of the focus. So it will only go to the area where already irrigation is there. Of course, it will increase water use efficiency. But the area, or 70% of the area today is rain-fed. So how rain-fed areas also can protect their kharif crop and also can go for a second crop in a significant chunk of their land, that should be the priority. So he had come up with very good suggestions, but I don't think any of those suggestions were implemented. So like that. So policy gaps are there, guidelines gaps are there. Guidelines gap, I already said that we are trying to implement something which is not feasible in that area, and we are not taking note of something that is required by the people, and they have come up with the design. So then land tenure is another issue, big issue in Bihar. Lands are not transferred to the people who are cultivating today. It is still in their grandfather's name or something, and which shows them to be big farmers. If you are a big farmer having lands more than 5 acres, then you cannot get the asset under MGNREG. So unless the lands are transferred to the farmer and to the person today who is farming, they are all actually marginal and small farmers, 85%, 90% of them. But many of them are not able to access resources under MGNREG if they become big. But of course, if they are tribal, they can access. That rule is there. So so these are the challenges which we have faced. So what we did, we first mobilized donors' money to demonstrate a model that how migration can be checked and resource conservation can be promoted, so that people can stay back in the village and also can produce enough to meet their needs and also can conserve the resources. So we demonstrated that model in a few places. Actually, Tata Trust supported and some of the donors with funds we mobilized. And once we demonstrated that, then it attracted the attention of district administration first. So the district collector found it to be a good model. Then they decided to replicate it under MGNREG. Actually, when MGNREG got launched in 2005, in 2006 or 7, we approached the ministry with a detailed report that this can be the model at least for the agroclimatic zone 7 and 8, which is actually Central India belt, so that MGNREG doesn't provide only employment, but it also creates assets which will reduce their dependency on unskilled work, so-called unskilled work. So they accepted it, and under many government programs, they circulated that guideline that we had prepared for implementation of this land and water resource development under those programs. Like OTELP is one program which adopted this, Orissa Tribal Livelihood Empowerment Program. In MGNREG, so then we also understood that no single actor is equipped with the resources and the competencies to address this issue. So we formed these coalitions. Actually, the West Bengal was the first to approach us, West Bengal state government, looking at the success in some of the area, that can you mobilize resources for yourself, for NGOs, because government cannot beat that. We are ready to work with you, whatever support you need, to take the model that you have come up with by working with the farmers to the whole state. They identified 54 blocks, the western part actually, the whole western part of the state, where there are highlands and water conservation was the priority. So, and under NREG, they wanted to prioritize that. So they said that we will provide you the resources. Can you come up with the resources to meet your own needs and also build our capacity? Because we know that you cannot reach all the areas, but we have to work in all the areas. So that is how this came up. So we brought in donors. BRL, Bharat Rural Livelihood Foundation, came in with the resources to meet the cost of NGO. Then we involved other NGOs, competent NGOs who had similar experiences, and also all the government officials at block level, panchayat level, and district level. And then this is how this whole initiative started. They named it also. It is named Usar Mukti, and the whole initiative started. And now today, I think they have benefited around some 5-6 lakh farmers with this initiative. And subsequently, MGNREG funds stopped to West Bengal. So that is again, after 21 elections, they have not received the funds. But still, we could leverage, because the work was demonstrated. That also drew the attention of Water Resource Department in the state. They have a program, WB, Water Resource Development Program, the Water Resource Development Department of the state. So now,
so
under
that way you could
program,
make it self-sustaining.
Yeah,
almost.
Because there is a demonstration on the ground,
yes,
and they are also doing the same thing. So they said, why only big schemes? Because they largely promote big schemes under Water Resource Department. So this work that is already done, now they have decided to promote the model under that World Bank funded ADMI program. The program is there in the state. So that is how it happened. In Odisha, again, the similar thing happened, because in Odisha, if you know, the western Odisha, very high migration takes place from that area to distant towns. So to check migration, even after implementation of MGNREG, they couldn't do that. So they came up with this program. They identified they saw our work, and they said that, can you help us? Help them. We are helping the government. They could not mobilize resources to engage NGOs. So we are working with them to build the capability of government functionaries, government teams only, to do similar things so that migration is checked. Now, Xavier Institute of Management has done a study, and they have found that this work has not only stopped migration to a great extent in that area, but also has increased agricultural productivity, because control and access over water has increased by many folds. Means most farmers in that area have it. So now government has come up with the second phase to expand into more areas.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing this example. I'd now like to take some of the learnings from here. And Tanya, if you could perhaps reflect not only on what Manas has shared, but what Vidya shared earlier as well, and Dr. Ghosh.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there is truth in everything that everybody all said. I mean, also like you, I appreciate very much the direct tone of Subimal Ghosh. Lives up to the reputation of IIT Mumbai. Very good. But so this, as I said as well, the science is there, the knowledge, the scientific analysis on the issues, on how to address it is there. And I would also, and that is personal, think that the local level is the best level to see progress in that area. Again, at EU level, for that purpose, we have created what we call living labs, where multi-actors come together, come together. Living labs are allocated on a competitive basis throughout the EU. We have about 100, and you will have these multi-actors that can really test the problem on the spot and find the solutions and see how they evolve. Another way is, as I said, the science is there. We need the applications. That maybe we are not there. Certainly speaking for Europe, we have in general a problem of translation of our know-how in solutions. And I think that's also what we need. While I was listening, I was wondering, there's so many angles and so many issues and so many levels. Having said that, I mean, definitely the local level is a very operational one, and we're also testing it out with this living labs. I do believe that we need to involve the ministries, the federal or the state, whatever, because sometimes an act, we have a soil act, which sets targets, which measures, where we do a progress report on it, and also, so that requires a legislative initiative. Another way to achieve some of the objectives is by what we call eco incentives. That is, for example, for the farmers but that also implies that they know how to farm in a sustainable way, that they know how to farm to ensure that on the one hand there is water penetration or water retention. That could differ. And that could be a solution for India, because you have such a heterogeneous and different landscape throughout the country. Eco incentives for the farmers. But maybe, I know we're not yet in, the problem is so huge and so multi-purpose. We kind of concentrate on a hotspot, and the hotspot I would see is looking at partnerships. Also, because I heard you had land managers play an important role, and including urban architectures or gardeners, the companies, fertilizers and pesticide companies, bio-based industries and waste managers all have a role. And if you create a partnership with them, maybe you get all the people working towards the same direction of the overall objectives of the country, for the planet, of the zero emission, for clean air, clean water, clean soil. So again, although I agree that scientists know a lot, have done a lot, have also worked with the ministries, and we don't see results, I would believe that working at both levels is absolutely necessary. And when working at the government level, again, what is important, what I see less in India than we start seeing in Europe is this working in silos. I mean, you work with MRIV, they don't connect at all to where the science is funded in India, with the Department of Biotechnology, of the Department of Science and Technology. MRI is not going to share its targets, its knowledge, and say to achieve that we would need that research. So there is a lack of co-creation, co-development of programs and ideas between these two ministries. We have tried to address this. It's very difficult, it's very time consuming, but more and more we now have the policymakers coming to us to say, we have our targets, can you help us achieving it through research and innovation? The day you have that in India will be great. So that is something that absolutely needs to be worked on. And
I'm actually going to pick up on something that you said and have Dr. Ghosh weigh in, if that's okay. Was I interrupting you?
No. I mean, there's a soil. Another way to involve all the actors is, for example, what we have a soil manifesto where people commit at local level. You could do that. You need actions, and then also in the beginning I said actions are also on awareness raising and communication. And what we have done in our research programs, when we do change the way of farming, because it is scientifically based the way to do it, we encourage to involve NGOs who can then help the population, help the farmers to implement it, because they see it defensive and rather than something of a measure or an action that could help them. So there are many ways to help doing it. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, two very important things that you spoke about here was the deployment of technology, right? I mean, that could be a very tangible solution to take us forward. But then on the other hand, then the awareness and knowledge at the very basic farmers level. And I'd love to hear both from Dr. Ghosh. Of course, you spoke about it a little bit. You spoke about both awareness and the challenges of deploying this technology that very often goes to the practitioners only in the final phase. But could you speak, are there any examples of where this has worked, or even if you could share a few emerging technologies that should be out there and used more profusely? And after Dr. Ghosh, I will bring the same question to you, Vidya. Given your work, what has been your experience in bringing some of these newer technologies at the very basic farmer level?
Well, so I'd like to mention that, it's very important to bring the technologies, but they have to be affordable. That's one of the very important things which I'd like to highlight. For example, let's say if you're talking about soil moisture sensors, we all know if we have a soil moisture sensor, we can easily get the root zone level soil moisture and we'll know that how much irrigation is needed, etc., etc. So, but I mean, how many farmers can really afford them? So recently, in 2018-19, we started working with a few farmers from Nasik, who were essentially the grape farmers, and they are very rich. So for them, setting up a sensor is nothing. So just because they are all associated with vineyards and so on. So we started with some of the farmers, and they said that, we are very good in irrigation water management because we have sensors. We look at the sensors and we irrigate every week. Every Monday we check the sensor value, soil moisture value, and we irrigate. And we consider a bucket model. So that means what they are doing is that for next 7 days, they're assuming there will be no rainfall, nothing. So bucket is half full, so half bucket water you have to apply to get this, irrigation working. So then we asked them that, why don't you follow weather forecast? Because India has improved significantly the weather forecast skill. Monsoon is one of the most challenging tasks. That's one of the major challenge in India compared to any European country or any Western country, is that we belong to tropical region. In tropical region, the meteorological variables have a very low predictability. So if you go for weather forecast or a extended range prediction, 2 to 4 weeks prediction, we are not very good at it, and that's not an India's problem. That's a problem. That is a science problem. So it's a main challenging problem globally. That's a major problem. So And so they said that, the weather forecasts are not reliable. Of course, IMD gives some advisories, but we do not find it very reliable because it gives for India and Nasik what will happen to my 30 meter, small land, or maybe a rich farmer will say 100-meter small land, etc. So then we said that, still it adds value because you are assuming that nothing is there, but at least something is there from the weather forecast. So can we get your model, and on that we'll add the weather forecast component. Of course, we'll use your soil moisture data and please check if it is helping or not. And we did that. And then they found 10 to 30% of the water saving is possible at a weather scale, 7-day scale. It's actually medium range scale. Immediately they asked that, so essentially they said that we have to make arrangements for water 2 weeks in advance. Can you tell us 2 weeks in advance that how much water we need to arrange? Then we brought S2S prediction, which is sub-seasonal to seasonal prediction or extended range predictions. And that also showed that it has promise, even at a very farm scale. So the idea here is, there are technologies, but at the same time, so essentially, if you're talking about agriculture, there is meteorology, which is very important, the meteorological forecast. But what is the real-time condition? It talks about the soil health, the crop health, soil water, etc. And then considering the future and coming up with a weather smart as well as climate. I mean, if you're not weather smart, then you cannot be climate smart. As simple as that. So you have to be weather smart. So, and if you and then if you have to make the system weather smart. You have to improve your early warning. You have to improve your management system. And if you have to improve your management system, you need technologies. But technology may not be affordable everywhere. So what we did here is that we further extended over the large region, and then we found that most of the farmers do not have soil moisture sensor. We use satellite data, which is again available at a surface level. So we use some methodology by which we keep on merging the data and come up with some solution which is still adding value. So idea here is that the solution may not be available, but when you talk to them, you'll understand their problem. You know that where you can add value because you're understanding their problem and you have certain expertise. So you can merge them together and come up with a completely different kind of solution. So technology, their input, your input, and finally out of the box thinking. And of course, when it comes to your input, it's the expertise from the scientific community, not from water resource, not from meteorology and so on, all sorts of agriculture expert and everyone, as well as those people who are working. And together it may add a lot of value. So that's one of the most important thing which I'd like to mention. And the second thing, of course, I'll come, which is more about, the feedback from the land surface processes to the meteorological processes, which I'll tell maybe a little later. But I mean, at least for the point of discussion, I'd like to mention this. Thanks.
Okay, we will come back to you on that. Vidya, if I could also have you weigh in.
I don't have much to add on this, but yes, I also experienced the same kind of things on the field. So I was involved in development of one irrigation scheduler, and when we used to ask farmers to use these technologies, so there's adoption of technology from their side is kind of a big challenge. So that's what I felt on the field while working with them. And then their changing their behavior is very difficult. So then we went to some progressive farmers, asked them to use this kind of technology. And when they accepted that technology, and then they have seen some change and impact on their productions, then other farmers convinced to use these kind of systems. So yes, the main challenge is behavior, changing the behavior of the farmers, and then these again the high cost technologies. It's very difficult to actually scale up through these small and marginal farmers. And I would like to mention some points regarding monitoring and evaluation of some projects which are actually technology related. So people are very unaware about these things. We have more than 720 agriculture Krishi Vigyan Kendras all over India, but still their capacity to reach to the farmer is very less. And again, their staff capacity, that we can't talk about these things, but still for 1 KVK, there is allotted one subject matter specialist to soil, to water, and that one subject matter specialist, how that can reach to all the farmers in the one district. That is a major challenge from government side. They are
Capacity is a
trying,
large issue.
yeah, they are trying best, but then again, it's lacking behind. So these kind of things are there while it comes to the technology.
Yeah, thank you for adding that perspective. I will take there are two questions. I will take the second one first because that's directly to some of the points that you made, Dr. Ghosh. It's from Joydeep Gupta, who asks, what will be the effect of IMD stopping agro advisories on the solution you're talking about?
That will really be very bad because, IMD should not stop the advisors, but IMD should work with certain people who can really work, because IMD has limited manpower to really talk to the farmers of different region, and then make really a good decision support system and provide advisories. So IMD itself cannot really take care of this huge job. We have to understand that. But what IMD produces is top class weather forecast. Nowadays weather forecasts have improved quite significantly, even severe to severe predictions. But what is missing is that, any forecast or any prediction have its own error and uncertainty. So there should be someone who understands the stakeholders' need, the way it happens, the way the soil plant interaction takes place, soil plant water interaction takes place, what is the stakeholders' need, and also who understands what are the associated errors, uncertainty in a forecast. Then they need to develop a decision support system incorporating all of them together. And this cannot be just something which is already available, you take it and apply. We have to think out of the box and develop a toolbox that really applicable for a certain region, for a certain crop. And such developments needs to be done at multiple local level, as Manas was talking about it. Then the bottom up will come. Then the bottom up will tell us that this is some sort of a generalized framework, but which is much more region specific. So essentially, regional input will become a local input will become more important, and region to region, the decision support systems main framework may not change, but what is there inside will keep on changing and provide important information, and that cannot be done by IMD. For that, we need many NGOs, many academic institutions, many local governing bodies, state governments, the district administration, and so on. And that's why I keep on stressing that team building is important, but it's still not happening. What is needed is team building. And if a team can demonstrate that, let's say pick up one district and show it's working, this is the framework, then replicating that with other experts for other district is not very difficult, and that can be replicated easily, but this needs to be done.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. And the other question from Joydeep Gupta, which I will invite anybody from the panel to answer, is he says, glad to hear about a few solutions, would like to know about the experience with Pani Panchayats, if any panelist has any such experience. And I'm going to add to that actually, beyond, we've of course spoken a lot about soil, water and its impact on agriculture, but what are the other aspects that we should also be concerned about, thinking about and talking about solutions for? So both of these questions together. Maybe we'll start with the Pani Panchayat. Does anybody want to speak on that? No.
Is he talking about the Pani Panchayats which are formed to take charge of the canal irrigation system and manage them better? Then I think very limited successful experiences are there across the country. In Gujarat, they have some positive experiences. But otherwise, Pani Panchayats mainly because of the nexus between contractors and
he's talking about groundwater, but perhaps
Groundwater. Pani panchayats generally are there to manage large irrigation systems. In MP
Water
also,
water is associations.
yeah.
Yeah.
So always
So
this irrigation to tailenders is an issue. Waterlogging at the head range is an issue. Getting water as and when it is required is an issue in most of the Pani Panchayats. That is why in the committee where Dr. Tushar Shah was there, he suggested that all these large infrastructures should be used for recharging the groundwater, and everybody should have their own resource to extract groundwater and use it for irrigation.
But could you perhaps explain what these Pani Panchayats are to
The
somebody
Pani
who might...
Panchayats, I am saying generally after the failure of government to manage these large irrigation systems well, they came up with this design to form Pani Panchayats, means at each outlet level, organizing the farmers into a committee, calling them Pani Panchayat, to manage the distribution part. So that is how the Pani Panchayat Acts came in many states, and all the water management responsibility was transferred to these Pani Panchayats. I think it was done in many states, but successful examples are a few, and most successful examples are there for small, when the command area is small.
Smaller areas.
In large structures, it is still an issue. Maintenance is still an issue because they are not able to recover the actual cost from the farmers. So always there is a deficit. Maintenance is poor. So tail end issues are always there. So I think Vidya can talk about more if they have some studies
Vidya,
on all
if you
this.
would like to add to that, perhaps.
Yeah.
yeah, last week I had I met some water resource authority officials from Maharashtra government in one workshop that was organized by water. I had been invited. So there we talk about this issue. So yes, as Manas sir said that yes, most of the Pani Panchayats and or WS that are inactive. The first main thing is water is not reaching to their outlet and how they can work. Then second thing is lack of coordination between these government irrigation department and between these Pani Panchayat members. And also lack of support for repair and maintenance in their structures. So most of the structures are almost more than 60% structures in Maharashtra that are under maintenance. So these kind of problems are there that are they facing, and whatever the best examples are there that are from head or mid region where water is actually available in plenty form, and the members are actually getting services from this irrigation department. They are day to day have a conversation with these people. So we suggested some research in this regard also. So why don't you create some communication channel to farmers, from first farmer from head region to the last farmer to in the tail region, that he will get information when the water will be reaching in his field. So that at least he will be ensured that water will be reaching, and let's plan something for our region. And these members may get some support.
Great. I have been reminded now we have only 7 minutes left to the close of this webinar. So I'm going to use that time to come to each one of you and give you 1 minute. If you had to have anybody who's listening to this webinar take away 1 or 2 ideas, what would they be from the discussion that we have had today? I will start with Tania first because we've not heard her speak for some time. And then perhaps after Tania, we could go to Manas, then Vidya and Dr. Ghosh.
That's okay. I enjoyed listening. Absolutely. It's I always have to establish so much meeting of the minds and concerns and the levels. So the takeaway would definitely be for me, continue to work on the local level with involving all the stakeholders. Maybe one stakeholder that wasn't mentioned and you were also asking kind of for a concrete action, it just came to my mind. What about, because of this science, knowledge and technology, startups do kind of a matchmaking or a contest and a problem statement for the startups to see if they can bring faster the solutions to the farmers on what they would be needed for this sustainable farming. Because I do believe from all what we hear, it is sustainable farming that would be needed. It's very broad, and maybe, I don't know, just came to my mind, startups can help, besides, of course, further creating awareness, communication, involving creative art and other ways of communication. But definitely a very good discussion, meeting of the mind, and hope you can also learn from all best practices. I shared the link on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tania. I'll go to Manas next. Manas, you have 1 minute.
I would like to say 3 things. If we really want to manage our land and water better for a better life for all, 3 things should be focused. We need to enhance community engagement. Any program should incorporate their perspectives, their priorities into account. Second, all stakeholders having the shared goals should come together and engage with government to leverage their programs in the interest of community, and different stakeholders can bring in different components. Third, we need to do constantly advocacy for raising awareness among policymakers to promote supportive policies and advocate for increased investment to address the needs of the most vulnerable.
Thank you, Manas. Vidya, you are next. 1 minute.
So I would like to raise one thing here, that it's just about the collaborative efforts only. The collaborative efforts foster synergy. It exchanges knowledge between all of us, and then shared responsibility with each and everyone. So by working together, stakeholders and government can ensure resilient and sustainable future for soil, water, and agriculture for every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya. Moving on to you, Dr. Ghosh.
Well, I think this has been covered. So simple thing, we need to understand the problem. We need to develop interdisciplinary team, sit together, work with the stakeholders, and then give them solution in such a way that is usable, and at the same time take the feedback from them continuously to further improve it. And I think this is the approach what is needed. Sounds simple, but it's very challenging. But we have to do that. The second thing what is being missed is that, I'll just quickly touch upon is that, whatever we are doing on land, we need to understand that it may have feedback to the earth system. And we should not really forget about it. Even if you make a lot of change in the irrigation, it will have impact on the monsoon system. If you make a change of lot of water management strategy, let's say if you are going for interlinking of river basin, it will have some feedback on the ecological system as well as in the monsoons to the monsoon system. It may result into some spatial imbalance, etc. So any land water management, whatever we are proposing, we have to be very careful. It should not affect badly to the natural processes what is happening in a larger water cycle. Water cycle doesn't mean only on land. It has atmosphere, ocean, land, everything. So you have to take care of that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. And thank you again, all of you, Vidya, Manas, Dr. Ghosh, and Tania, for sharing your expertise. From my point of view, I think what was most important and the reason why we had this webinar as well, was that the linkages between water and soil are often not spoken about. We always look at it from the perspective of agriculture and food security, but how do these basics actually impact then agriculture and food security and even health, which of course we did not touch upon, but I think the time was very limited and there's a lot to already discuss when it comes to agriculture. But I hope that this will be a start to a much larger conversation, and we'll hear many more people talking about soil and water and the interlinkages there. And so thank you very much for starting this conversation with us. I would like to inform all those listening tuned in as well that these webinars will continue. We will have the next webinar around World Environment Day, and do keep a watch out on both the Revolve and Kuber9 Initiative social media handles. I have my colleague putting them down in the chat box currently. We also have a newsletter, so if you sign up for the newsletter, the information will come to you. We will continue to feed in articles, interviews, and views, which are the photo essays, into the 2024 Sustainable India initiative as well, which will then be available as a report at the end of the year. And if anybody would like to contribute to the report, please do reach out. And my colleague will put down an email address for that as well. Do reach out to us. We're happy to feature your work and feature good ideas that should be going out there, and collaborate with you. And with that, I will close this at sharp 5:30. Thank you once again,